Welcome back to Eclectic Soul Podcast. I am Jen. This thing sitting next to me over here, a hot thing that is
Jen.
We are talking about...
We are actually on book 3 now.
We are on book 3. And what's book 3 called?
A Court of Wind. I can't even say.
A Court
of Wings and Ruin.
Wings and Ruin. First few chapters were quite interesting.
Well, the first chapter is from Rhys's point of view.
Yes.
He opens it going back 500 years in the past, talking about the war between the Fae and the humans, and how the war that freed the humans and the wall was put up. And there were Fae that were fighting with the humans on their side. And it was his experience
of what he went through.
And it was basically like after a battle, and he was trying to look for Cassian and Azriel, and he thought maybe their bodies were there.
His brothers, yeah.
Yeah.
It was sad what he was portraying. Yeah. You know, as he came upon the wings of other soldiers that were part of his...
The Illyrian...
Yeah, the Illyrian soldiers.
Yeah.
You know... I mean, I could feel how he would hold his breath until he saw the face of who it was, to whether or not, it's a sigh of relief or, oh God, and that, it was, yeah, that was sad. It was sad.
And it was definitely different because... you're not expecting the book to open with his point of view. We did get a little bit of his point of view at the end of book 2. When, you find out about when she's the High Lady of the Night Court. Right. And I think this particular section is in the book because this book has a lot to do with the war coming up. It's like the history is repeating itself kind of thing.
Well, and history does repeat itself.
Yeah.
That's because people don't pay attention to... certain things, and they don't break the cycle. And if you don't break the cycle, you will continue to repeat. And where does that leave you? It leaves you like a gerbil or a hamster on a wheel that just keeps going around and around and around, and you go nowhere. You gain nothing. You think you are, but you gain nothing.
Right.
So,
after that, Feyre is now in the Spring Court.
Yeah.
Which I know you were not happy to read about.
No.
Because you're not a big fan of Tamlin. And
no.
Neither am I.
Because he's a pig.
And, she has a big plan that she's putting into motion.
Yeah.
She can't kill Tamlin outright because he is a High Lord and there is a war coming up, and they're trying to, get people to at least fight on their side, so she basically does this stuff to basically make the discredit him, make the Spring Court fall.
Right.
She tries to get Tamlin to not trust Lucian.
Right.
She earns the respect of his sentries or his guards and the people. She allows them to see his aggression. That's why she doesn't shield herself.
Right. But again, back to that, when they are in, when you start off and she talks about how she feels good to be back and everything, she's playing her part. Lucian's still not like, what are you talking about? There's, he's got it in his head, internally thinking, he's going, you're just not right. Something about you's off. But to know that there's a point in these first few chapters where she's now in a room across from Lucian. instead of in her old room.
But you know why she's not in the old room?
Because Tamlin shred the old room all to hell.
Yeah.
Her clothes, everything. And when she opened up the door to see what that room... I mean, she must have been devastated in a way. Because had she been there, she probably would have died.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she wouldn't have known how to fight for herself. She wouldn't have known how to take a hit. She wouldn't have known how to use her magic to protect her more than what she was doing just on natural instinct in the beginning with him in the first book or in book 2. But like her clothes were shred. Her dresser was all blown up. Her bed was all blown up. The room had thorns and stuff all over. It became a bitter part. I mean, this is a home inside of a building, and yet the earth felt it needed to encumber it because...
Well, it's probably Tamlin's magic, right, to the spring court. Maybe it's creating this overgrowth.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was sad about that. What I did like, though, is when the young lady... Alice. Was happy to see her. Was honored to still be around her. The way she spoke to her...
She knew, though, too.
Yeah.
Even if she's Summer Court. She's from the Summer Court.
Right.
But you could, I mean, just the conversations they would have.
Right.
She, you know, Feyre never admitted anything, but she would basically kind of hint that she knew that things didn't add up either. Like, she mentions, you know, she was there when Moore took her.
Right.
And she was completely willing and she felt safe and...
Right.
She looks better now than she did before. Like, things are just not adding up.
Right. And here, you know, she also lets Feyre, no, God, I'm never going to get the...
Feyre?
Yeah. Know that she's going to leave. And she's going to take her nephews. And they're going to go back to Summer Court, where they're from. And that she would always, and she goes like, don't let your king know that, you know, because there's a ruby out with my name, a blood ruby out with my name on it. And she goes, well, you will still have one friend in the Summer Court, you know. So everyone saw what she went through with Tamlin. Everyone knew what she did for them. And they saw the crap he put her through. And they saw how she was kind to them. And they felt that kindness. And to hear the guards say that, you know, thank you for, you know, taking care of my wounds, because that one dude got 25 lashes. And it's like, how can you say that you would much rather strike your guard 25 lashes when he's being completely honest about who stole your keys, even when the female herself admitted that she took them, or didn't make a big difference. Wait a minute.
She didn't admit them. But everybody knew that she did.
Right. But Feyre was trying to get across that, you know, it wasn't right and everything. But you do it anyway. And I know he had to be struggling with the fact, a part of me wants to believe him. But because he's trying not to ruin this so-called masterpiece or whatever it is that he has in his head, because of Highburn, he got his girl back, and here he has this woman, and they're trying to keep peace. He doesn't want to listen to anyone else because he's a narcissistic son of a bitch. he's right, everyone else is wrong, even though the facts are there proving that he's wrong and everybody else is right. He does what he wants. He strikes his person, hurts this person, and the woman he claims to love goes and tends to this person because she feels absolutely horrible for him and everyone else.
And it plays into her plan. Like, Ianthe does a lot of these things that Feyre uses to discredit Tamlin.
Right.
None of that would have happened, but Feyre went into the soldier's mind, or the sentry's mind,
right,
to get him to admit,
right,
that he didn't do it, right? Because otherwise he probably wouldn't have said anything.
Right.
And then there's the scene where, her and Tamlin have the fight.
Yeah.
And she doesn't shield herself on purpose because she wants everyone to see how violent he is.
Yes. And that says a lot for her character. She is willing, and being a victim of abuse from a narcissist, for a woman to be willing to take the abuse just to protect the others, to show others, this is exactly what happens. This is what I had to deal with. This is what I have to go through. This is what you have to deal with and go through. You need to wake up. You need to realize this is not what we need.
Mm-hmm.
This is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And have that courage to do that, and that strength to do that. It is phenomenal. And then the stunt she pulls at the party. That, I was like, when I'm listening to that, I had my eyes closed because I'm trying to imagine all of this stuff. And she's talking about it, and she never noticed that I moved her seat 3 down.
She moved like there's
name place or whatever it
there's
is.
There's like a thing. Well, okay, we're talking about the summer solstice, right?
The summer solstice.
And Ianthe is doing a ritual, and Ianthe is, I'm probably almost more narcissistic than Tamlin.
Yeah.
She always wants to be the center of attention, and she planned the ritual out so that when the sun rises in the morning, it's going to shine in a specific spot.
Right.
And she has a little indicator of where it's going to shine through.
Right.
So that Ianthe can stand there, so it's going to light her up when the sun comes through.
Right.
She gets Feyre involved with the rituals, so they're like talking about it together. So Feyre knows what's going on, and so while she's doing the ritual, she moves the thing over, and she makes sure that she is in line with it.
Yes, and that is freaking hilarious.
And then she uses her power to magnify the light
that she gets hit with, because and she probably would have thought of Reese at that time too, to go ahead. Oh yeah, sexy time with my husband. I'm all abeam. Because we know that's when she turns it on. But everybody is in awe of her at that moment.
Right. They think she's blessed. Yeah.
And that, even though she still has bruises visible, and that, she's been through a lot, and she died to protect them, and, she was brought back to life, but, she's been mistreated. She's supposedly been kidnapped, and whatever Tamlin fed them, but here she stands before them, their lady of spring, because that's what they thought they were getting back, because they don't know any different. She's blessed, she's holy, she's their savior.
Right.
And in turns, what she does after that moment, and takes, everything else, and turns everyone pretty much against him, is somewhat being their savior, because now their eyes are open. They do not have a High Lord that has their best interest.
Yeah, and that's the truth. That's the truth. I mean, regardless of how you feel about what she's doing, I mean, the truth is that he's never had their best interests.
No.
I mean, I understand that he thinks he loves Feyre, and that's a debate that, we could have for years.
Right.
But the fact that he's willing to give up his entire court just to get somebody back, regardless of whether they wanted to come back or not, that's completely not relevant.
Right.
He's supposed to be the High Lord of the court, and that's supposed to be your priority. He sacrificed his entire court to Hybern just to get her back, and she didn't want to come back.
Right.
So he forced her to come back on top of that.
Right.
So it's just he doesn't have their best interests at heart.
No.
He never has.
To me, narcissists are selfish.
Right.
I think the reason why he wanted her wasn't because he was in love with her.
Power.
It was power. The power he could hold over her, but also the power that there is the high possibility, which I noticed that she never brought this thought process of his out. Well, not saying that he had this thought because it wasn't written.
Right.
But I felt like that it was unspoken. That because Reese made it sound like you need to let her go back home or something in book 2 was it book 1? Because, her... Was it 2? I'm so confused right now.
I think it's 2 what you're talking about.
Yeah, because, somebody could be after her, but just knowing that someone could be after them, and if he thinks he could obtain, if she has any gifts, he can obtain them for himself. But it was never brought...
Right.
In his mind, it was never narrated that way. It was never spoken as it coming from him. It was always coming from someone else. But because the way this is written, how well this is written, it wouldn't surprise me because of his behavioral patterns that's what, and I picked that up. I picked that up immediately. He does not want to share her with anyone else in case she did. Now he knows, but in case she did have powers that he could use to also control others.
I think you're right, and I think there are a lot of people in the fandom that also agree with you. It's a very narcissistic behavior.
Yeah.
Narcissists never want people to be above them.
No.
So they don't believe in equality, and he knew, and you'll find this out even in the book that we're reading, he knew she's had these powers, just like Reese knew.
Oh, see, I did not know that.
Well,
I picked up on that.
He just didn't want her to learn how to use them.
Well, that mother.
But again, that's very narcissistic behavior.
Yes.
He's not going to want her to be better than him.
No.
To surpass him.
Right.
Right? He wants her to be submissive and to follow what he says and to just be a little housewife or whatever the equivalent is of that in this world. He doesn't want her to learn how to use her powers, and because she would be technically more powerful than him.
Right.
She has all the powers of all the High Lords.
Right.
So yeah, he knew the whole time. I'm not saying that he knew to what extent, obviously, because he never actually saw her do it.
Right.
But he knew that she had those powers.
Right. I'm pretty sure he picked up that she had a few of those powers when she shielded himself the very first time that he what was it, his office that they were in, and he destroyed everything in there?
A lot of the things that he does is, you're kind of going, he can't be that blind, right? Because all the other characters in the Spring Court that are around her are all seeing what he doesn't see. Right?
Right.
It's like he's putting on some sort of a blinder to what's going on.
Right.
And it's like, the argument, I guess, is he really that stupid, or is this just...
I'm sorry, but
he's just a narcissist, and he's just basically saying, well, she's mine and I don't care and I'm going to ignore all this stuff.
I hate to say this, but I've talked to many people because I've seen some narcissists who think that they're better than everyone, who think that they can manipulate and torture, and I've watched them lose their control over, and it isn't pretty. When they lose their own control because they've lost control over someone else, they actually become very vindictive and very hurtful and very physical. They're not as bright as they think they are.
No.
And they're not as bright as even some psychologists tend them to be, which I was actually shocked about. They like to, basically their bark is smaller than their bite. And what I mean is that they talk themselves up. They talk about how they have this, they have that, how much they take care of you and all of this to pull you in and blah, blah, blah. But that's nothing compared to if you piss them off or they lose control, their bite is much bigger. They are just nasty, foul, ignorant. They don't care what they do to you.
Oh, yeah.
If you can get away from them, you're lucky. That's the only type of, to me, any type of smarts they may have is that they know how to throw a punch.
I think also, too, I think if they are intelligent, I think it gets lost in the selfishness.
Yes.
Because it's you know, I'm assuming that a lot of them are very intelligent, but the problem is that, you know, when you're viewing the world with one lens, and everything has to be filtered through just you, right? And you're not considering all the different angles, right?
Right.
Because that's what most people do, right?
Right.
They're thinking of other people, they're thinking of all these other things.
Right.
Where a narcissist is just thinking about, how is this going to affect me? What are my wants? What are my needs? And they're disregarding everything else that's going on around them. It's very hard to put your intelligent plans and your intelligent processes to work.
Right.
Because that's all you're seeing is this is me. This is how I am viewing the situation.
Right.
And I think that's why he misses the obvious things that are going on.
Yeah. It's because he's not very bright on the subject of looking at it from different perspectives, from different angles, from different levels. You know, he's only looking at, well, she's mine and I want her to be only mine, and without her I can't do this or do that because I need this or that from her. It's agreed. It's not, it's agreed. It's not a need. It's a want. It's not a desire. See, and that's another thing. If we were to take a piece of paper and put Tamlin's name on one side and Reese's name on the other, and we throw out the word want, it's going to go underneath Tamlin. If we throw out the word desire, it's going to go underneath Reese. If we throw out the word love, it's going to go underneath Reese. If we throw out the word what is some of the words he used to use? Forbid. It's going to go underneath Tamlin, because he uses words of command. He uses words that define what it is that only he wants.
Right.
Whereas Reese uses words that come from love, respect, admiration. You know, yes, he says you're mine and she says I'm mine, but that's accepting each other completely. of what they are to each other because they're home to each other.
Mm-hmm.
But they, and plus they play around with each other. But everything is about, there's a love, there's a compassion, there's all these beautiful things that make up this beautiful aura around both of them. But if you take that and put a bunch of other words that I used to use with Tamlin and Tamlin used with her, you start seeing where she would ask, can you please take me with you? No, you stay here. Those, when someone barks commands at you, they don't want you with them. They want to control you. They want you to sit still and be pretty. And I'm not a sit still, be pretty kind of girl.
Right.
And neither is she. She came from a family, a human family, that she was the youngest that went and did the hunting. Went and took the skins and sold the skins just to make extra money to be able to buy shoes when they needed them, to buy a cloak if they needed a coat or whatever to cover up with. She probably wouldn't surprise me if she didn't chop the wood to keep the fire going. And if she was lucky, her sisters may have cooked food, or she and her sisters cooked the food. But that's stuff she grew up doing. So she didn't take command. She took charge.
Because she had to.
Right. She had to. She took charge. Well, that just spells out, to me, she's very independent. Mm-hmm. She doesn't want someone who wants to control her. She wants someone who would honor her.
No. Yeah.
So.
And like you said, the two lists and stuff. Feyre in the beginning, in book 1, doesn't have an identity.
No.
Because the only identity that she knows is what you just said.
Right.
Right? She is surviving.
Right.
She never had the luxury of being able to just, live your life and discover who you are as a person.
Right.
And so when she does meet Tamlin, she is an unreliable narrator in a sense.
Right.
Because she's projecting. Well, I should go back and say it's the first time that she doesn't have to survive.
Right.
Once she finally gets comfortable there.
Right.
She doesn't have to worry about food. What am I going to eat? Where am I going to live?
Right.
Any of that stuff.
Right.
And so she's able to now start trying to figure out who she is. But the problem is that she's projecting what she wants to see onto Tamlin.
Mm-hmm.
And because he is not able to show who he really is.
Mm-hmm. At the fear of losing what it is that he is determined to get.
Right. He brought her there for a specific purpose.
Right.
And everything that he does is to make sure that purpose is fulfilled.
Right.
So again, obviously he has an identity, but he's not able to be himself. He's not able to show his identity during that time.
Right.
Because he's trying to break the curse, and so he's going to do things and say things that would not necessarily, and we've talked about this with narcissists too.
Right.
Narcissists will be really into somebody in the beginning, and they'll be really great, and they'll be really focused on you, and they're going to want to know all this stuff about you, but they don't really focus a lot on themselves in the beginning. It's all you.
Right.
But then once they have you,
they're getting the ammunition to use against you.
Yeah. So then eventually, once they have all the information that they need, that they know that you're in, then the real person comes out, and that's kind of what happens here as well. And also, she's projecting, right? She doesn't know who she is,
right?
So she's easily manipulated,
right?
Because Tamlin wants her to be, somebody who fits in with the Spring Court. He doesn't want her to be a human.
Right.
He's just stuck with that situation. And he wants her to wear dresses and all of these things. And, you can tell that she's not really for it, but then over time, she starts to kind of change herself to fit into the role because, again, she doesn't know who she is.
Right.
And she's projecting, and she eventually, gets overcome with, his emotions and feelings and all that stuff.
Right.
And that's pretty much what happens in the first book. I mean, that's what you're seeing.
Yeah, and that's where you get the fairy tale from, is that the fairy tale is you see this guy, okay, you see this girl, she has nothing, she kills a wolf, the guy that comes looks for her, instead of killing her, which is like supposedly the thing that they're supposed to do, he takes pity on her because of what they have and takes her back to his house in his world and ravish her with clothes and food that she can eat all she wants, she can wear what she wants, and she can go anywhere she wants in the garden as long as she didn't go too far away from the house because he didn't want her to get killed, and that's what he told her. You take someone that has nothing and you give them that, it's a little overwhelming. People that are completely not independent would eat that crap up because she is independent and she still didn't know who she was. It took her a while to get used to, why do I have to wear these clothes? Why can't I just be me?
It took a book till book 2, really.
Yeah. And, it took until she died and came back to life to realize that, she didn't want to be there. And,
but even then, she was still wanting to be there. She was justifying. She was justifying.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually it got
until
out of
a wedding day. Wedding day is when she couldn't handle it anymore.
Well, it was the blood. The color red.
Yeah.
She had a panic attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want a bunch of red in my wedding either.
No.
I mean.
But yeah, but even still, like in the beginning of book 2, she's suffering.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But she's still justifying his behavior. It's not until like later when she starts going to the night court and she starts getting a break that she starts to kind of see, okay, like, all right, maybe this isn't really the way my life is supposed to be, right? Because what we're looking at it from our perspective of, we know who we are, we have an identity,
right.
And we know what the world is like,
right?
But for somebody who's spent their entire life surviving and then they get everything that they complete comfort and everything
handed to them.
They don't know what, she doesn't even know what the real world is like.
Right.
In her life,
Right.
She doesn't know anything about the spring court.
No.
At all.
Not really, no.
Pretty much the entire time she's there, everybody's glamored.
Right. She doesn't know what they really look like.
She doesn't know if they're cities. She doesn't know anything.
Right.
So it's like...
She doesn't know if they're all from the spring court area. She doesn't know, do they have siblings? She doesn't. She can't even engage conversation with them.
And when you go back and read it too, she doesn't know anything about Tamlin. Because again, Tamlin doesn't tell her anything about himself.
No,
really.
Not really.
If anytime he talks about himself, it's
vague.
very, very vague.
Right.
I think the only information you really get is like when he talks about his parents. That's about the most information I think you ever get at all about him. He just doesn't tell her really any information about himself. So it's like she doesn't know. And when you get to book 2, when she starts going to the night court, she starts to see that okay, maybe that's just what's happening here. This is not really what life is really like all the time.
Right.
And I think that's where she starts to, she starts to not tolerate a lot of the stuff that's happening as much.
Right. And then bringing it up till now, she goes back to that court and she starts showing people what it is that she had to deal with the first time there. Now the second time there. Getting them to open up their eyes, getting them to realize that their High Lord is not who they feel that he is. He's not, like I said, he does not have their best interest at hand, because he's too damn greedy. He wants what he wants. He doesn't like to lose, and that's another thing about narcissists. They hate losing. They hate losing games. They hate losing a lot of things.
They don't take responsibility for
no,
anything.
and they do not take responsibility for it. They will blame it all on somebody else before they take the blame, before they accept the blame. And that's sad. So moving on past that, she decides to leave.
Well, hold on before we.
Okay.
So the night that she has the nightmare and she goes in to see Lucian.
Yes. Oh.
So she has this nightmare.
Right. And it's bad.
It's bad, but it's not. It's not.
It's not bad enough that she needs to pawn all over Lucian.
She knew that.
Right, the trust between Lucian and.
Right.
But her thing was I figured it would take him this long to come to my room, so that's why she did. So
all during the festivities for the summer solstice, she flirts with Tamlin. Mm-hmm. So she knows he's gonna try because they have not slept with each other this entire time.
Right.
So she's pretty sure that he's gonna come up to the room. So
yep.
So when she has the nightmare and her room is across from Lucian's room.
Yep.
She runs in there and is like all over him because she's sad.
Yeah, she's hugging him and, buried her face into his chest because, oh, it's so scary type thing. Oh, just protect me.
And she puts like a bubble around him so that he can't hear when Tamlin's like down the hall or coming in and.
Yeah. It's just really weird.
But she did that because in the first book, he was already jealous of Lucian.
Yeah.
So she was just playing that up.
Yeah. And it's sad because her and Lucian kind of had a friendship. And, Lucian picked on her. Mm-hmm. And friends will. They'll pick on each other, mm-hmm. And, boy, man, when he saw that, what are you two doing? He was not happy. and they're both like, Lucian and her like, whoop.
Like nothing's happening.
Yeah, no, it was nothing. I just had a bad nightmare. And I came in here and he comforted me. That's it.
But again, Tamlin is so like, it's that whole selfishness thing.
Yes.
It's like, sit and think about this for a second.
Yeah.
Lucian has a mate. Everybody knows this. So the chances of there being anything going on between the two of them is very, very, very slim.
Yeah, but he doesn't get that. He doesn't get that. Because he is a narcissistic pig, a boar with horns, who only sees as someone is trying to get at something that belongs to him. And he doesn't like it.
And I think
he doesn't listen to reason.
Right. And I think he's jealous, like, deep down, because I think he realizes that Lucian has a connection with her, and he doesn't. Right. And that's the truth.
It is the truth.
Even in book one. Like, they have more of a genuine connection than Tamlin.
Whose fault is that?
Well, it's Tamlin's fault.
Of course it is. So take his little tears.
But again, it's like he's a narcissist, so he's not going to be able to connect with people.
No.
It's impossible.
Most narcissists can't connect.
You can't connect with somebody genuinely if you're a narcissist.
No.
Because you have to be able to think of somebody else sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't,
Yeah. And then people who have empathy, like me, get involved with a narcissist like that. It takes us a long time to heal.
Right.
And so, and in a sense, she does care about people. She had to take a long time to heal, hence the reason why she was so gone for so long from them. And then she realized she didn't want to go back. Mm-hmm. Because she was better off without him, without being around him. She could breathe. She could be herself. She was loved for who she was. She was respected. She had a good group of people around her that liked her for who she was.
Right.
And that's what humans, or anyone for that matter, wherever you hail from, you could be from outer space for all I care, but us as beings need that type of unconditional love. We need that type of respect. We need that type of communication. We need that type of a bond. Whether it's a friendship bond, a love bond, a parent bond, we need that bond. That we need to know that if we're having a bad day, we got somebody that would pick us up, make us laugh.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't feel good, they're there. If they are going through a bad day, if they need us there or something takes place, they need to know that we're there for them as well. That we'll stop what we're doing, or we'll send a funny message or a crazy picture or something, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or an image or whatever, you know, depending on however you communicate. That's what it is to care. But narcissists don't know how to care. They don't
know how, they can't see the other person.
No.
Everything goes through the lens of themselves.
Right.
So, and they don't see that. They don't understand what they're doing. It's just naturally what happens. Like they can't see a perspective other than their own perspective.
And don't get me wrong.
Right.
There's different levels of narcissists.
Yeah.
I mean, you have mild narcissists.
I don't think Tamlin is a malignant narcissist. I think
No.
he's like a mid-range narcissist.
Right.
So obviously he does show some
remorse,
and, you know, he's not like intentionally like doing horrible things to her. Like malignant narcissists would be like, I'm going to torture you because I feel like it kind of people. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like they're like, he's abusive, but he's abusive in an accidental sort of way.
Right.
Where malignant narcissists are like, they're gonna abuse you because they want to abuse you. That's
right.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. You got too close to me. Boom! Slam you against the wall. Oh, did that hurt? Here, let me help you up. And they pick you up and they slam you against the wall again.
Yeah.
You know, that's just because that's who they are. So. Anyways,
we should probably move on, huh?
Yeah, so she decides to head out.
We should talk about the twins, since we're going to talk about that, too.
Well, is this when they're heading out and they had followed her?
Yeah, so,
okay, so
the twins, let's talk about the twins first. Right.
Oh, well.
So the twins, right, so you've got Branna and you have Dagdan. So one's a woman and one's a man, and they are the niece and nephew of the King of Hybern, and they were sent there because the Spring Court is now working with Hybern. So, and Jurian, right? Jurian was also sent there.
Mm-hmm.
And they are there to look at the holes on the wall because they're going to remove the wall with the cauldron. Mm-hmm. So they need to like see where the holes are and make a decision about how they're going to use the hole to get rid of the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And the two twins are Damati, which means they have mental powers.
Mm-hmm.
You're just looking at me like, mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't like them, and I'm glad they're gone.
Yeah. But while Feyre was doing her little planning, they don't trust her at all, right?
Right.
They're pretty sure that she's probably still working with the Night Court. Mm-hmm. And they've been putting stuff in everybody's food, not just Feyre's, everybody's food. They were putting Faebane in. So they first put it in Ianthe's food, kind of, I guess, as a test. But then they started putting it in everybody's food.
Right.
And basically, they just put a little bit in there over time so that nobody would realize that their magic was slowly disappearing.
Yeah. Well, not just disappearing, just going to sleep.
Yeah, going to sleep.
So.
But when she is ready to leave.
So she's ready to leave, and Alice comes to her and has an extra backpack made up for her. Extra food, extra blanket, whatever she needed, because she knew she had a long journey ahead of her. And she takes off to leave, and she gets to a point, and which one meets her first?
Well, they're all out looking at the hole, right? And they're like camping.
Right.
And she's by herself, and Tamlin and Jurian are off hunting, I believe.
Right.
And so she's like, this is perfect opportunity.
To
she is leaving, and on the way, she hears Lucian and Ianthe.
And she goes to save Lucian from Ianthe.
Right. So Ianthe is using something to tie Lucian's hands.
Right.
And they're the same things that Hybern was using to when Rhys was caught.
Right.
It like nullifies your magic, so you
Right.
can't use any magic.
Right.
And basically she's gonna rape him essentially. I mean,
Right.
obviously nothing doesn't get that far.
Right.
Because she steps in, but basically that's what's gonna happen there.
Our high lady is like, I don't think so, bitch, in a sense, and works her way into her mind to have her smash her hand with a rock and then tell people that she fell.
Yeah. And that she's not going to do this again. Like,
right.
she basically says you'll never touch anyone against their will.
Right. Anytime she ever thinks about it, she's going to look down at her hand and remember all the pain and everything, but she won't know why.
Mm-hmm.
And that she just won't. She will not go through with it. And she told her to drop to her knees when she was done. She goes, that's enough. Drop to your knees, and she did. And she's, whimpering and everything. She goes, go see to fix it. But, your hand's pretty bad. As she turns to get ready to leave.
That's when the twins show up.
And was going to take Lucian with her.
No, not yet.
Not yet. The twins showed up.
Yeah.
And,
they know she was going to leave.
Yeah.
They're there to basically tell her that she's not going to be leaving because she's going to be losing her magic soon.
Right.
Because they gave her the apple.
Yeah.
And they dosed everybody, I guess, extra that day. So, and then she realizes that she's not going to have magic for very much longer, so she decides to attack them.
Yep. And boy, does she go off.
And they're really, I mean, she doesn't have a lot of experience compared to them, but what she does is while she's attacking him.
Yeah, she goes in and out of darkness.
Right.
Yeah.
She realizes that because they're twins, they have a special connection.
Right.
And she's just fighting him, so she decides to attack her while she's fighting him because he's not going to expect it and she's not going to expect it. Right. And she uses her magic instead of, like, a weapon or her mind, right? So that's when she, like, uses her fire and, gets her.
Right.
And Lucian comes in and stabs him. Yeah. And then she comes in and saves Lucian at the end. Yeah. Yeah.
And they're dead. And then she turns around and looks at Anthony and she goes, and you tell them, you tell them I killed them?
Mm-hmm. In self-defense.
Self-defense.
Yeah.
And not to come looking for me or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess that's when they made an agreement to go together, Lucian and her.
Well, yeah, because then he confronts her, because he hasn't really been saying much at that point.
Right.
And then he realizes that she's leaving. Yeah. And then he wants to go because he wants to see Elaine. Yeah. Yeah.
And, oh my God, and from there, you think that they're going to be A-okay, but no, because they have no magic, so they can't wither. And they have to take a door, and the door that they have to take, the closest thing that they can get to is...
Well, there's technically there's three doors from the spring court, where the spring court is. Right. There's a door that goes to the summer court, because the summer court borders the spring court. Right. There's another door that goes to the autumn court. Right. And then there's another door that goes to under the mountain. There's a tunnel that goes under the mountain. Right. And she doesn't want to go to summer court because of the blood rubies. Right. So she's like, if anyone sees her, she's going to be killed immediately on sight. No questions. Right. So, and Lucian doesn't want to go under the mountain. And he says because after Amarantha and all that, they destroyed a lot of the tunnels. So if they go in there, they might get stuck. Right. Or something. So that leaves the autumn court, even though that's extremely dangerous to go to, because the autumn court is the most dangerous.
He's like, why can't we just walk this way? And she goes, I don't want to go all the way to the west because then it's really out of the way. Right.
Because you're going the wrong direction.
Right. And he's like, I don't want to go through the autumn court. You don't know if they catch us, they're going to attain us and we're going to have to stay there. Yeah. And so they get all the way through. They get past the court. They get almost outside of the area, and they get in this little cave to spend the night and have a little fire, thinking that they made it past everybody undetected. Mm-hmm. And they get woken up by his brothers.
Right.
The oldest 3.
So.
Little fuckers.
Yep. And they are going to take him with somewhere, probably back to their house.
Yeah. Well, they wanted to take him back home. They said, the father wants to see you.
Mm-hmm. And that's when Feyre realizes that she has a little bit of fire. Like,
yeah.
Maybe because she's in the Autumn
Court area.
Not a lot, just
Not
a little bit.
Yeah.
And so she is able to get out of Eris's hold.
Because he lost his balance, and then she was able to use her legs to knock him completely out of it.
And then she starts using the fire power, but Lucian also has his fire power too back.
Well, he figured, and he's probably thinking, well, she's got hers, I got mine.
Right.
Because they ate the same foods, they ate around the same time, and so, you know, he goes, I got you, and so she's doing her thing, he's doing his thing.
And they're running.
And they start to crumble the front of the cave in so they could get away.
Right.
So they take off running. And they're running for the Winter Court.
Right.
Or for the Winter Court area. They don't want to go to the Winter Court, but they want to get into that area thinking that
they won't be stupid enough to cross to someone else's territory.
Right, and they were stupid enough to cross someone else's territory. But, so,
yes. Well, before we get to the action...
Well,
is that what you're going to jump into, is the action?
Well, I was going to say, you know, they're climbing up, they're doing what they can to get up to this. They're like, you know, he's like, we should stay here. She goes, no, we need to keep going. We need to get far away. We need to get further in. And she was right with that aspect. They were afraid that she was going to lose the fire in her because it only activated because they were inside there to keep them warm enough.
And she does lose it. Because they weren't able to, start a fire or anything.
Right. And, they found, didn't they find another cave that they stayed in?
Yeah.
And, their teeth were chattering and everything. Mm-hmm. They got through the night a little bit, and it was like when they were getting up and moving the next day, and they realized that they were crossing like a lake.
Yeah, frozen lake.
A frozen lake, and they were making good timing getting across. You know, they were trying to hurry up, just to get out of, you know, get further in and to move past that area to get closer to home. Mm-hmm. Or at least hoping that her powers would engage so that she could wither them home. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes his brothers again. Like, how the fuck did they even manage to get inside a territory that wasn't theirs undetected? They had their powers.
Oh, yeah.
And the oldest boy is sitting there melting the freaking lake on them. And Lucian's like, run! And, you know, they're running, and he's trying to keep her up, and because she kept, like, you know, losing her balance and everything. It's kind of hard to run on ice. It's even harder when the ice below you is disappearing because it's getting weakened by fire.
Yeah.
And then she realizes that, you know, she starts feeling that tingling sensation that she got or whatnot, and with the fire that... oh, we're further enough in, I should be able to... She started putting ice down as she was going. But, it just got to be really bad because...
Well, Eris winnows in front of
her, yes.
And attacks her. And he actually gets a hold of her.
And he winnows in front of her with one of the brothers that has an arrow pointed right at her neck.
Right.
And she moves to get away from it, but she's cut on her side of her face and her ear.
And she got an arrow in her arm.
And then when she went to go roll away from the next arrow that came from behind her, it got in her right arm. And it's like, really? You people are ignorant. Well, then Eris got a hold of her by the hair on her head, and it was not pretty, and he was dragging her across the ice, and the other two had Lucian pinned down, and then all of a sudden, my favorites landed with the thunderous of thunder. And I was never so happy to hear two winged heroes land, and
it was so funny in the car. You were so like,
I was like, yeah! I thought one was Reese, but I was okay with that. When they said it was Cassian, I said, oh, they're about to get an ass whipping. He goes, let my lady go. I was like, yes. I was like, oh yeah, ass whipping, coming at you. I was all excited. Oh, who let the dogs out? Who? So, yes. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah. So, those two boys, and she's like, and you can see her, she's like trying not to cry.
Yeah.
But she's very emotional because here she sees Cassian, a good friend, a family member, his wings, his beautiful wings. He's okay. They're okay. And then she notices the other one. Azriel. Which is really funny because that's that goofy ass, the Smurfs, wicked warlocks. Azriel is the cat's name. And it's like he's alive, and they're like beating the snot out of all of them, and then she commands them to stop.
Right.
And they do.
Yeah.
They listen, and he's like, because my lady asked me to stop, you get to live today, or something like that. Or she says that.
She says that.
I am letting you live today, because it wasn't their territory. They weren't going to kill them there, and she didn't want them to be killed at that moment.
Well, it's the same reason why she didn't kill Tamlin, right? They're royalty from the Autumn Court.
Right.
And she knows that they need allies in this war if they're going to be able to fight Highburn. And if she starts killing High Lords and their families, you might as well just say goodbye to that.
Right. And, and I don't know if he said it or she said it or Reese said it later on, but I think it was one of them, is either her or Cassian, is like, I'm only letting you go.
She says that.
And it's because, even though you just hurt her, even though you put a knife to her neck.
Yeah.
And she's a royal in a sense too. She's a high lady. Well, they didn't
know that yet until she announces it at that moment.
Right. And there's no such thing as a high lady. And I think that's when Cassian.
No, she's like, there is now. That's what she says.
Yeah. She said so.
And then Lucian is so like scandalized.
He's like, what? And it's like, if she had her magic, she wouldn't have needed anyone.
No, you're right.
Because she would have dealt with you her own way. She might have tied you up in a nice little pretty package and dropped you off on your father's step. But, it's never her intention to go out of her way to kill anyone. All she wanted to do was get home.
Right.
And then they go to where Moore is, and they land there, and, she goes to Moore and gets a hug and everything, and she goes, well, someone had to stay here, just in case they got alerted that someone was on their property, they come and see me, come at me first, and not at you guys, to get them, out safely, and then Moore withers them all home.
And she also explains why Reese isn't there, right?
Right.
We don't know where he is, but we know that
he's
not close.
She wouldn't tell him, but she said he wasn't close enough to come himself. But she didn't tell him where he was. She's not happy where he was either.
when she finds out later.
Yeah, I'm like, what?
Yeah. So. And then they go to the townhouse.
They go to the townhouse, and
Lucian sees the townhouse.
And hears the kids outside. He goes, there's kids outside laughing. You know, he's really like, wow. You know, because they don't have that in Spring Court.
They don't have that anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, and also he has a picture of what the Night Court is like, right? Because the Night Court is very secretive, and they've been hiding Valaris this whole time.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to be evil, right?
Right.
So.
And it's like, this is not what he expected, you know? And so here you have more Cassian, Azrael, Lucian, and
Amren.
And Amren, there.
He bows. Remember when and she introduces Lucian? And Lucian knows who she is.
Yeah, and Lucian goes, huh?
And he like shows her a lot of respect.
Yeah, because
it's funny. She's
like,
I see you've trained him well, or
he's
been or something. You've trained him well or something.
Yeah, I don't want her biting me. What is she, a vampire?
And the rest of them are all kind of like, really, like boosting her ego.
Yeah. And you know, and they're talking and everything, and she's facing Lucian and talking to him, and you know, she's kind of got like, she knows Cass is behind her and Azrael's over here, and then the girls are kind of like here, and Lucian's kind of like here, and then all of a sudden she hears this voice coming from behind, and that's all she wrote, man.
Yeah. That's Lucian asks. He says that she's the High Lady of the Night Court, and then that's when Rhys comes in. He says like, yes, she is, or something like that.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah. And oh, these are cool. And it's just, she couldn't even run to him. She just collapsed, you know, because her home just came home to her. Mm-hmm. And you know, she's, what time frame? I think, what is it, a couple of months that she's been gone?
Yeah.
That, you know, that's a lot. And not being with him, not being around him, not
really being able to communicate
with him these past several days. And the communication had been kind of wonky and sound like it was far away, and come to find out it was that being poisoned with the Faebane, you know. So it's like, oh, now. And then he's like, okay, well, everybody needs to leave.
What's really funny about that, though, is the parallel. Uh-huh. So, remember in book 2?
Uh-huh.
When the first time she comes back from the Night Court, and she's been gone. Do you remember from book 2? Mm-hmm. And she comes back, and what's the first thing Tamlin wants to do?
He wants to, he wants to fucking know everything that she's done.
He wants to grill her about what happened in the Night Court, right?
Yeah.
Well, the exact same thing happens when she gets back, right? So when she gets back, she even asks him. There's a line in it where she's like, "Do you want to talk about what happened in the Spring Court?" She actually says that. She asks him. And he basically is like, no, you know, I have better things to do.
Well, it's not what he wanted at that time. What he wanted was to be with her.
Right. But it's just, there, you've got, you have that parallel there.
That right there says that's love, saying, I could care less right now. What I care about is how are you doing?
Right.
I care about holding you. I care about letting you know you're now home safe with me. Mm-hmm. That your home is in between my arms, you know, and I'm holding you tightly. That's what he cares about. It's him reassuring her that she's safe and she's supported and she's home. And they can talk about that tomorrow. Mm-hmm. They can talk about that in a couple of days. He trusts her not to forget anything because he knows what she's good at. His main priority is as long as she's okay. Mm-hmm. And then when he tells them to leave, that I'm like, well, okay, you tell them all to leave, going, where the fuck is Lucian going? That's what I was thinking. He can't fly. He can't wither.
More takes him somewhere.
Right, you know? But so it's like, oh, okay.
He just didn't care. He was like, everybody leave.
He wanted everybody leave because I'm going to fuck my wife. Basically, that's what he wanted to do. You know? So, and he does. Oh my God. So, yes, again, we're on our way to go eat dinner when this part comes about. And I'm like sitting there. Are we coming home at that time when that happens?
We were going to Canes. What's hilarious, though, is that literally the entire drive to Canes was this entire scene.
So I'm sitting there and she's driving and she's looking straight. She's not looking.
This time, though, I was trying not to I had this big ass smile on my face.
I could see.
I was trying to keep it in because I was thinking of you.
And I'm sitting over there in the seat. And I'm going, okay, yeah. And I'm looking out the window and I'm looking up and seeing if I can see any stars. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. I'm grabbing a hold of my arm and I'm rubbing my arm. I'm like, is this gonna end anytime soon? I'm thinking to myself. And
their scenes are always so long.
They're so long because it's
and
so graphic.
It's so it's because I think it's because they're like very seductive. You know, like it doesn't happen right away. It's like this prolonged.
You're mine too.
Well, because you have the whole bath thing that happened.
Right.
Like
then he snaps his finger and she's clean, and then she's like, okay, well I'm gonna take a bath anyway.
And then she like undresses slowly, and then he watches her while she's taking a bath. So it's like this whole long thing. It's just
it's all ploy. Oh.
And then after she gets out, he doesn't just immediately have, it's like this, whole seductive thing that happens. And
oh, yeah. And then your mind, your mind.
Well, she's getting tired. She's getting tired of him just playing around.
Yeah, you're mine. And then he goes, kind of whispers in her ear, well, you're mine too. And then they get it on. And that's the part I'm going, okay. I'm thinking to myself, and I'm just looking out the window and I'm going, I'm thinking to myself, any day now.
And then when it ends,
and I'll look over at Jen and she's got a nice car. And so, she already sits up in the car because of the way the seats are. She's literally sitting away from the seat, sitting up more, and you can see her. And she's like...
trying not to laugh. I'm so trying not to laugh.
She's just grinning. It's an evil grin. And I'm looking at her and I'm going, oh, God. And I'm like, putting my hand over my face. And I'm going, oh, Jesus. And she's like, she looks like she wants to look over in my direction, and she's like, nope, just keep standing.
At least he didn't put his fingers in his mouth, because I would have looked at you then, like we did the one time, where we both looked at each other and smiled.
Because it was hilarious. It's like, why couldn't a guy do that for me? But anyway, but it's like, yeah, yes, just get it on. And that's what let's get it on. They definitely were playing some good music in my head, Oh my God.
Oh God. I don't know how we're gonna get through book 5, man.
Book 5?
Book 5
We're not even done with 3. We just started 3. What are you don't scare me.
That is the naughtiest book ever.
Don't scare me.
Brian is like,
don't scare me.
Because Brian...
It's bigger. This is the biggest book.
Brian has listened to sections of book 3, and he's like, well, can't we just listen to the rest of the series? And I was like, no, we are not listening to book 5 together because I won't be able to handle it. So sorry.
That's when you play book 5 when he's wrapped like a burrito sleeping at night and put earbuds in his ear and listen to it.
Book 5, man. I was like scandalized so bad. Anyway, back to what we were talking about.
So yeah, needless to say, we go in to eat. We come back out and we start the journey back home. I stopped at Walmart, got back in, come back home, and they still weren't done yet.
No, they were done.
Well, they were kind of done.
I mean, hell, by the time we got to King's, I wanted to smoke. What? I was like, we just stand out here and smoke a cigarette.
but I mean, so they they went up to the House of Wind.
Yes, because she wants to go see her sisters.
Right.
Because she hasn't seen them since they've turned.
No.
And she asked Lucian if he wants to go.
Right. And he's, of course he wants to go because he that's his mate up there. And the saddest thing is that she gets there. She goes in and sees Nesta. When she looks at Nesta.
Wait. Rhys and Cassian take them both up.
Right.
To the House of Wind.
Right.
And that's when Lucian sees all of Valaris because they're up top, right? And that's when she tells him everything that's happened, like the truth.
Yes, they did. They told him the truth, and then she had Rhys tell him his truth, as much as the truth that he could say.
And she's going to go in and see her sisters, but she doesn't want Lucian to come. Right yet.
Right.
So she has him wait.
Uh-huh. And,
that's when they go in to see Nesta. Nesta's in the library. In the House of Wind.
Uh-huh.
Reading a book. And she looks very relaxed. Until they come in.
And she jumps up, snaps up, and she's
very angry.
She is very angry. She's not very happy. She doesn't like the fact of what happened to her. She doesn't like the fact that, unbeknownst to anyone else, that her little sister, or the middle sister, is withering away to nothing. Not eating.
Mm-hmm.
She's supposed to get married in a week, and it's not going to happen.
Because the father of her fiancé hates Faye, and he wants to kill Faye. So that's not going to happen. Because Elaine is Faye.
Right.
She goes in to see Elaine.
And Elaine looks like death warmed over.
She's definitely suffering from depression.
Yes.
She's just staring out of a window.
Yes.
And she just wants to go home. Because she says that a couple of times.
Yep. She wants to go home. She still has the ring on her finger.
Mm-hmm.
And, she didn't want to have Lucian come and see her. She didn't even want to mention Lucian to her.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the way she looks, and she was already fragile. She didn't want to inflict any more on either one of them.
Mm-hmm.
She was being considerate of both of them, and then when she turned around, Lucian was standing in the doorway.
Yeah.
So,
and he apparently heard everything that she had said about her fiancé and all that.
So, I'm like really sad about this. I feel sorry for him. I feel sorry for her. I even feel sorry for Nesta, because she didn't ask for that. But that when Nesta got up to go towards her sister, Rhys had put a shield up, because Nesta may not know how to use her magic, but Nesta does have magic, supposedly. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
And that would kind of freak me out, too. So, I mean, I wouldn't know what the hell to do.
Mm-hmm.
Either, My whole life changed. Somebody ripped me from my home, took me, and then they threw me in the cauldron, and then out I came looking like this, and I don't know nothing about this type of lifestyle. Now she knows what it is for her sister to be in that situation, but she's in a lot of pain. She carries a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but damn well that Cassian loves her. She loves Cassian, she just won't admit it. So, but it's the truth.
And they give Lucian a room.
Yep.
And they basically say that he's not allowed to talk to the sisters.
Yep.
He's not allowed to go into the library. But he is allowed to leave the house.
Yes. And he's not allowed to take the sisters with him either.
No. And when they go, but when they go
out.
When they go to Amren's apartment.
Yeah. Oh Jesus.
They bring that up. They're actually placing kind of like bets. They're almost like, how long is it going to take for him to...
Yeah. Yeah.
And Amren's so happy that everybody's at her apartment, and she's in a really great mood.
Yeah. She really is, so much to the point that she
cranky.
Is very much of a cranky butt, and she's like, "Why are you all here?" And then the book starts talking to Feyre, and one of them just tells him like "shh" or something like that, and it just shuts up. Shut up. So. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. But so, and then that last chapter that we read is basically them in her apartment talking about the cauldron and their plans.
What are they going to do? And they're going to send invitations out to all the High Lords.
To have a meeting. Because they need to figure out if who's going to, side with them, who's going to fight with them.
Right. So I'm kind of interested. If they're going to send out letters to everyone, what's the summer court going to do to them? Don't they still have bloodstones out on 3 of them?
Summer court? Oh yeah, well I guess you'll find out what happens there.
You're gonna invite people that want to kill you to your court. Okay.
Well, I mean, Tarquin, was a nice guy. He's just pissed that they stole from him.
Yeah. Anyway.
So,
anything else?
Well, that's where we ended up. We ended up on, we're going to start chapter 17 next time. I guess we're done.
Oh, really? Are we now?
Unless you have something to say or do.
All I got to say is that this book series has got my eyes open a little bit further when it comes to real romance, in a sense. The romance I ain't got.
Oh.
That's making me a little jelly.
Oh.
Where is my Reese?
Aww.
I want a Reese. I want a Reese's peanut butter cup too.
Yeah, I know. Chocolate.
I love
and
my
peanut
chocolate.
butter.
Yes. But, yeah. Anyway, I can't... you know what's coming. I just hope 17 starts off better than what 16 ended. The sadness of knowing that the sisters are, one's not doing so good, the other one's kind of pissed off at the whole group of people. Yeah, so, alright, until next time, enjoy your everyday life. Give thanks, give gratitude, love the ones that you're with, tell them how much you love them. Take care of your health, eat well, sleep well. Until next time, be safe, blessed be, love yas, bye! And if you would like to contact us, you may do so at our email, eclecticsoulpodcast@gmail.com. Our Instagram account is Eclectic Soul Podcast. Our Facebook is eclecticsoul.org. Our YouTube is Eclectic Soul. Jen?
If you want to reach me, my personal website is Music and Mystery. My SoundCloud is the SoundCloud page, the soundcloud.com/Jennifer-Feltman. My Facebook is @Music and Mystery. And my Instagram is @musicandmystery.
And if you would like to reach me personally, my Facebook is @JustCallMeJinJin. My Instagram is @CallMeJinJin or Look for Goddess. And my Twitter is @JenSullivan. Thank you and have a blessed day.
Blessed be.